जगद्गुरु मदात्मा सर्वभूतात्मा कृपालु गुरवे नमः। कदा द्रक्ष्यामि नन्दस्य बालकं नीपमालकं पालकं सर्वसत्त्वानां लसत्तिलकभालकम् वन्दे नवघनश्यामं पीतकौशेय वाससं सानन्दं सुन्दरं शुद्धं श्रीकृष्णं प्रकृतेः परं। नमः कमलना भाय नमः कमल मालिने नमः कमल पादाय नमस्ते कमलेक्षण यो ब्रह्माणं विदधाति पूर्वं यो वै वेदांश्च प्रहिणोति तस्मै तग्वंह देवमात्मबुद्धिप्रकाशं मुमुक्षुर्वै शरणमहं प्रपद्ये। Dear devotees of Bhagavan Shri Krishna, let's chant his glorious names, Bhajo Giridhar Govind Gopala. भजो गिरिधर गोविंद गोपाला भजो गिरिधर गोविंद गोपाला भजो भजो गोपाला भजो गिरिधर गोविंद 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 गोपाला भजो गिरिधर गिरिधर गोविंद गोपाला भजो गिरिधर गोविंद गोपाला। बोलिए वृंदावन बिहारी लाल की जय। श्रीमद् सद्गुरु सरकार की जय। Shri Krishna in the form of a child is extremely charming, and he is very capable of stealing our heart. Even a worldly child is very capable of stealing our heart. So many people watch YouTube videos of cute little children doing something or the other. Sometimes it's little tiny twins, they're talking to each other. And a person can spend hours watching those videos because children are extremely charming. They attract us. So when the Supreme Lord himself, the Lord of Lords, and there are many lords, there are countless lords, countless Brahma, countless Vishnu, countless Shankar, of countless universes, and then there's one Lord above them all, and that is Mahavishnu. And then there's a Lord of Mahavishnu, the one that Mahavishnu is a part of, that is Shri Krishna. Shri Krishna, when he descends to earth in the form of a child, is absolutely mesmerizing. He is infinitely charming. He is infinitely beautiful. And our heart melts when we hear his sweet pastimes. This is a very good thing, because our whole purpose of life, human life, is to fall in love with God. We believe that we have so many obligations, so many duties towards a family, towards society, towards our country. But there's only one obligation that we have, one true obligation, that is the supreme obligation, and that is to know God and to fall in love with God and thereby attain God. If we have not managed to do that, if we have not tried to do that, then we have not lived as humans. So the Supreme Lord takes pity on us. He loves us so much that he himself descends to earth and he becomes a small child. Think of who he is. He is Brahma, and Brahma means the one who is the biggest of all. Brahma in itself, the word means the one who is the biggest. Brahma brihatvat asbada jako adina ant. Bhakti Shatak Jagadguru Shri Kripaluji Maharaj says, Shri Maharaj says that Brahma means one who has no beginning and no end. He is the biggest of all. But that Brahma, who is the biggest of all, becomes the smallest of all. He becomes so tiny. And now we don't fear him. Problem with us is that we fear God. We are afraid of God. Now, who is afraid of a little child? Sri Krishna descends to earth in the form of a little child and no one is afraid of him. Everyone is bossing him around. His friends are bossing him around. They're taller than him. They're bigger than him. They're older than him. His brother Balaram, he's also bossing him around. He is definitely, he has a right to do so. He's the older brother. He's a bhaiya. Yashoda is telling him what to do, what not to do. The individual soul is telling Brahma what to do, what to wear, how to behave, when to go to sleep, when to do what. Yashoda thinks, he is my child, and he's ignorant. He doesn't know. It's up to me. It is my responsibility to teach him everything. So she tells him, Kanhaiya, don't do that. Kanhaiya, bad. Buri baat hai ye, aisa nahi karna. Kanhaiya looks innocently at his mother, and he says, okay, Maiya. Nanda Baba says, Kanhaiya, idhar aao, come here. And Nanda Baba teaches him what to do, what not to do. When Nanda Baba comes home, Kanhaiya goes running. Nanda Baba takes off his slippers. Kanhaiya carries them, but it's easy for him to carry them on his head. So he takes Nanda Baba's Charan Padukas, puts them on his head. He's the youngest, he's the smallest. The individual soul has become bigger than him. Once when Naradji saw what was going on in the courtyard of Nanda and Yashoda's house, he was amazed and he was confused. Because there was a little child, Kanhaiya, he was crying, he was rolling around on the ground, he was stamping his feet on the ground, he was crying, Maiya, Maiya, pick me up, Maiya, I want to be in your lap, pick me up, Maiya. And Yashoda was saying, I have too many things to do. I have lots of work to do, Kanhaiya. So you play with your toys. And he's crying, and Naradji is so amazed. He's and confused because he's thinking, who is Brahma and who is the Jivatma? And he thinks, well, Brahma is always the individual soul. Jivatma is always crying for the lap of Paramatma. The individual soul is always crying to go into the lap of Brahma. So this woman, Yashoda, she must be Brahma. And this little child is the Jivatma, the individual soul. But then sage Narad thought, but I have heard that Brahma has taken birth in the male form. So this child is Brahma. But the child is wanting to go into this woman's lap. So she is the mother, he is a child, he is Brahma. Brahma wants to go into the lap of the individual soul. That doesn't make sense. Initially, the individual soul, the Jivatma, cries to go into the lap of Paramatma, the lap of Brahma. And then, when someone has reached the seat of Yashoda, she has become God, she is God realized. When someone has reached the seat of Yashoda, then Brahma himself cries to go into the lap of the individual soul. The situation is reversed now. So Brahma, who is the biggest, the greatest, Sri Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, there's none greater than myself. Mattaha parataram nanyat kinchidasti dhananjaya. Chapter 7, verse 7. O Arjun, there is none greater than myself. But then, Maharaj, you have become so small. You are a baby, now you're an infant, you're a toddler. Yes, I do this for my devotees, because it becomes very easy for them to love me in this way. It has been 5,000 years since Bhagwan Shri Krishna descended to earth. And when he came to earth, he was Swayam Bhagwan Shri Krishna. Swayam Bhagwan was here 5,000 years ago. And even now, 5,000 years later, our hearts are still melting when we hear his stories, his pastimes. We are still falling in love with him just by reading his pastimes and by hearing about them from others. We are absolutely delighted when we hear those sweet pastimes. And our hardened heart softens. Our materialistic mind turns towards God. All on the basis of those pastimes, those sweet stories of Shri Krishna that unfolded when he was here 5,000 years ago, towards the end of Dwapar Yug. One day, Yashoda Maiya, she looked at Krishna and he's just playing all day long. And he's getting into mischief. Gopis are coming every so often saying, Maiya, your Lala is very mischievous. He stole butter from the pantry. Another one came. Yashoda, you have to chastise your child. He's too mischievous. My child was sleeping and he pinched him and woke him up. Now my child is crying. And why did Krishna do that? Why did Kanhaiya do that? You must ask him that. You must punish him. Another one comes, you've spoiled him too much, Yashoda. Now enough is enough. One says, oh Yashoda, I cannot even live in Braj anymore. You know what, we are leaving. All these gopis, friends of mine, they're saying the same thing. Nij Braj dham lehu nandarani, hum to ant basengi jaye. Yashoda, तुम्हारा ब्रज तुम्हें मुबारक, हम तो कहीं और बस जाएंगी. We will go and live somewhere else. We cannot live in Braj anymore. Your Lala is too mischievous. Their hearts are filled with love, and their words are filled with complaints about Shri Krishna. So Yashoda is thinking, indeed, he has to learn some discipline, and that will only come when he starts to study. And every mother here can identify with that. You know, your children sometimes become very unruly, they become spoiled, but when they go to school, the teacher is not going to say, oh, you can do whatever you want. The teacher is not attached to the child. Teacher is going to do her duty. So then the child says, I don't like this. My mommy lets me do whatever I want. My daddy, I have him in the palm of my hands. And what is this? The teacher tells me to do this and not to do that. Do this, don't do that. I don't like it. But gradually, the child learns discipline. So Yashoda says, Kanhaiya, you have to study. You have to study. Krishna tvam patha. And he says, Maiya, this is a new thing, study. I'm playing all day long. I'm eating and playing, and I'm I'm jumping into your lap and into my Baba's lap, and what is this thing about studying? And Maya, what should I study? Krishna tvam path kim pathami nanure shastram kim ugyayate tattvam kasya vibhoh sakastri bhuvanadhishascha tenapi kim. A conversation takes place between Kanhaiya and Yashoda Maya. Krishna, you must study. Krishna tvam path. Kim pathami nanure? What should I study, Maya? Shastram. You must study the scriptures. Kimugyayate. Why should I study the scriptures? Tattvam. To attain true knowledge. What kind of knowledge? Whose knowledge? And she says, Vibho. You must acquire the knowledge of God, Kanhaiya. Sakah. God. Maya, who's he? Who is God? Kanhaiya, Tribhuvanadhish. God is the Lord of the three universes. Okay, but what concern do I have with him? Why should I know God? Because Kanhaiya, listen to me. She sits him down. Kanhaiya, when you attain the knowledge of God, Jnanam bhakti ratho virakti. First, you will get to know who God is. You attain the knowledge of God. And that knowledge will lead you to love. You will become a devotee of God. You will start to love God. And then virakti will come. You'll become detached from the world. And he thinks to himself, a little 5-year-old boy, Thakurji says, knowledge, bhakti, gyan, bhakti, virakti. Maya, I don't understand any of this. But Anayakim, what else will I get? And she says, mukti, liberation. Maya, what is liberation? Ye mukti kya hoti hai, Maya? Maya, ye khane ki cheez hoti hai? Ye peene ki cheez hoti hai? Koi khilona hai mukti? Maya, what is this mukti, liberation? He doesn't understand. This is a big word. So Maya says, Kanhaiya, mukti means you don't come back to this world. I don't come back to this world? And he starts wailing. And Yashoda thinks, what did I say? What made him cry like this? And he says very loudly, Maya, I want to come to this world. I want to come here. I like it over here. I have you and I have your love and I have my Baba's love. I have all these gopis who love me and my friends, the Gwalbal. Maya, I want to come to this world. Now, Krishna is enacting the pastimes of a child. He says, I love this world. I want to come to this world again and again. What this really means is, Maya, what will the world do without me? I must come to the world again and again. How will you live without me? How will the gopis live without me? What will the cows and their calves do without me? Maya, I don't want liberation. I want to come to this world again and again. Not understanding this, Yashoda Maya says, Kanhaiya, Kanhaiya. So stop crying, Kana. She picks him up very lovingly. She embraces him and she says, Lala, be quiet, quiet, no crying, no more tears. Look, you don't have to have liberation if you don't want it. You don't have to have liberation. Okay, you will not have liberation, okay? Now stop crying. And suddenly he stops crying. His eyes light up. And he says, so Maya, I don't have to study, do I? And she says, what? Maya, by studying, when we start studying, eventually you get liberated. So if I don't want liberation, I don't have to study, right? And Maya's head starts to spin because she doesn't know how to answer this question. What kind of logic is this? It's a child's logic. If by studying you attain liberation in the end, then you don't have to study since you don't want liberation. It's like there were some illiterate men in a village, and they were sitting in the evening time, they were sitting under the tree, and they were talking amongst themselves, and they were saying, the government is saying that there's not enough money, and our country is very poor. And one of them said, I just don't understand this. All they have to do is to print some rupees, lots of rupees, and give lots of money to everybody. And that's the end of poverty. And the others are clapping. They're saying, what a wonderful idea. That is great. This makes sense to them, that you just print a lot of notes, rupees, dollars, and you just give it to the citizens, end of poverty. It makes sense to them, but it's very illogical and it's ignorant. So Kanhaiya is saying, according to his intellect as a child, Maiya, I don't have to study, do I? Yashoda starts to laugh after the initial shock, and then she says, Kanhaiya, we shall talk about it later. Yes, Maiya. All this talk about Gyan and Bhakti and Virakti and Mukti, Maiya, it's made me very hungry. So Maiya, can we go inside? Can you give me some food to eat? Maiya, do you have some fresh makhan? No, Yashoda definitely has butter for him. She has churned it herself. She has 900,000 cows. Yashoda and Nand, they were very wealthy. And the wealth of those people in that community 5,000 years ago was measured in terms of how much cattle you had, how many cows you had. So they had 900,000 cows. There was no lack of milk and buttermilk and makhan, butter. So she said, yes, Kanhaiya, I'll give you makhan. Maiya put mishri in there too? Yes, Kanhaiya. And Maiya, can I have thick roti with that? Yes. And all the talk about studying was forgotten for the moment. The childhood pastimes of Sri Krishna are extremely delightful. They attract us. They make us laugh at times. They make us cry also, crying with joy. There was a Paramhans, and Paramhans, one who is always absorbed in the thoughts of Brahma, one who is in the samadhi of meditation on Brahma. And he happened to see Sri Krishna. He was a deserving soul. So Sri Krishna gave him darshan. And when he saw Sri Krishna, just the sight of Sri Krishna made this Paramhans forget everything about Brahma. He did not wish to reflect on and meditate upon God without name, God without form. And he thought, that is nothing. Brahma is not attractive. This Sri Krishna is infinitely charming and attractive. So he gave his heart to Sri Krishna. He forgot all about Brahma. He changed in a moment's time, in even less than a moment's time. As soon as he saw Sri Krishna, he became a devotee. So now he is warning, lovingly cautioning other Paramhansas, others who are lost in the meditation on Brahma. He is telling them words of caution. He's giving them. Mayata pantha pathi bhimarathya digambarah kopita malanila vinyasta hasto pinitamba bimbe dhuta samarkash shati chitta vittam. He's saying, O Paramhansas, those of you who are lost in the meditation on Brahma, I am warning you, because I was one of you. And I'm warning you that if you happen to see a little boy who has a blue complexion and he's not wearing a stitch of clothing. You see, I saw a little boy who was blue complexioned and he was not wearing a stitch of clothing and he was standing so stylishly. I was just passing through that way and I saw this boy. He had his hands on his hips and he was looking from the corners of his eyes, and oh my, I looked at him And I forgot all about Brahma. ब्रह्म को तो मैं एकदम भूल गया. अब मुझे ब्रह्म से कोई वास्ता नहीं, बस मैं उसी बालक का ही ध्यान कर रहा हूँ. I am only meditating on that most attractive boy. So I am cautioning you that if you don't want to lose your meditation on Brahma, then don't go that way. Don't follow that path, because I went there and everything was stolen from me. I lost the biggest thing I had, and that was Brahmanand, the bliss of Brahma. What he means is that he has now something which is infinitely sweeter than Brahmanand, and that is Premanand. So the Paramhansas are attracted by Sri Krishna, the deserving ones who have these sanskars of bhakti. They are attracted by Sri Krishna when they see him, and then they do not go back to Brahma ever again. They become devotees forever. So 5,000 years ago, Sri Krishna performed very sweet leelas, sweet pastimes as a child. Countless pastimes, but one of the sweetest pastimes are those that he performed as a child. Jagat Guru Sri Kripaluji Maharaj, our Gurudev, used to say, lovingly, he would say that, I have told you all about the supremacy of loving Sri Krishna as a beloved, but you people are stuck on Vatsalya Bhav. You all love him as a child and you're not going beyond that. Shri Maharaj ji कहते थे, हम कितना मत्था पच्ची कर चुके हैं आप लोगों के साथ, लेकिन आप लोग वात्सल्य भाव में ही अटके हुए हैं. So once Yashoda found her darling son with both his hands in the butter pot. So she caught him red-handed. Krishna kwasi. She looked at him and she caught him red-handed. And she said, Kanhaiya, what do you have to say for yourself? Maya, I have a perfectly good explanation. Oh, really? Both your hands in the pot of butter, and I can see it on your mouth also, and you're saying that you have a good explanation? You're stealing makhan, bad habit. Maya, I was not stealing butter. What were you doing then? Maya, you know that you put these bracelets around my wrist, and they have this gem in them, Padma Ragamani, and this gem has a tendency to heat up very quickly in the heat of the sun. So Maya, I was playing outside with my sakhas, and my wrist started to burn. My hands were just burning. And I thought, why are they burning? And I told everybody, are your hands burning? They said, no. Mansukh, is your hand burning? No. Dhansukh, what about you? My hands are okay. Everybody said, no, they're fine. Then I said, oh my goodness, my Maya puts these bracelets on me, and that's why my hands are burning. So I said, boys, I've got to go inside. I left my friends. I came into the house. I rushed into the house, and I called out for you. You weren't there. And I thought, what should I do? What should I do? But Maya, you have taught me so well. You taught me that butter has that very cooling quality, especially the fresh butter. And so I remembered that, and I put both my hands in the butter pot, and what a relief that was, Maya. What a relief. What about the makhan over here around your... Oh, Maya, I just went there accidentally. I put my hand in there, then it was itching over here, and I went like this, so the butter went over here. But Maya, I'm not a thief. I know you're suspecting me. Maya, बहुत शक करती हो तुम मेरे ऊपर. You don't have faith in me, Maya, do you? You think that I'm a thief. All these gopis, liars, all of them, they come and they contaminate your ears. They tell you all these things about me that are not true, and you're so innocent, Maya. That is your amazing quality, Maya. And that's the worst quality you have also, Maya. You're too innocent. Anybody can make a fool out of you. Yeah, I know, you're making a fool out of me right now, she says. No, Maya, I'm not a thief. So he got out of this punishment this time, because Maya started to think, maybe it's a possibility, maybe he's right, he's telling the truth. Then one day, Maya Yashoda saw him giving out butter to monkeys. He was feeding the monkeys. And there's so many monkeys around him, even today if you go to Vrindavan, there are a lot of monkeys there. And I remember once being in Shama Sham Dham. It was the month of December, it was very cold. And I wanted to leave my room, and I wanted to go to the hall where Kirtan was taking place. I opened my door, and there was a monkey staring right at me. And all I said was, hey. Of course, forgetting that monkeys don't speak, I said, hey. And the monkey just looked at me, and I became afraid the monkey might attack me, so I closed the door. And I thought the monkey might leave, because I didn't give the monkey anything. I had nothing in my room. And so I peeked again, and the monkey's still there. I was basically in my room. I couldn't call anyone. I had no means to do that. And I was stuck in my room because there was a monkey outside. So even to this day, monkeys are in abundance in Vrindavan. So Thakurji was feeding those monkeys. They were all his friends. And Yashoda Maya saw him. And now he knew that Yashoda Maya, his Maya has seen him. He knows that he's in trouble. So Maya, he could read Maya's eyes. She's angry. So he starts to run. The criminal absconds. He starts to run, and Maya gives chase. Maya is very tall, Kanhaiya is very tiny, she has big feet, she's able to run faster, and he has tiny steps he's taking. He's running, she's giving chase, and he looks behind, and he says, oh my goodness, Maya's gaining on me. She's going to capture me, she's going to beat me. She has a little stick in her hand. Where is the stick going to land? So then he was so afraid of that little tiny stick that Yashoda has in her hand that he just stands there, stops running. He knows it's a lost cause. And he starts to cry. Every child has this weapon, and that is tears. When all else fails, just cry. Mother is going to chastise me, she's going to punish me, she's going to beat me. All right, so let's cry. That will melt her heart. So he starts to cry. All the kajal in his eyes, there's a lot of kajal in both his eyes, it starts to run down, and now his cheeks, it smears all over his cheeks. And looking at this, Yashoda takes pity on him. She puts her stick down and she says, I won't beat you, but I will tie you up. So she ties him up to the grinding stone with a piece of rope. And she had him tied up to the ukal, to the grinding stone. And he's begging for his liberation. He's saying, Maya, Maya, I promise never to do that again. Please, release me, untie me, Maya. And she's saying, no, you've done this many times before, I'm not untying you. Just as this was going on, Naradji was passing by, and he exclaimed to himself, Yashodaya sama kapi devata nasti bhutale ulu khale yaya baddho mukti do mukti michhati. There is no one greater than Yashoda. On this earth, there's no one greater than Yashoda, because the giver of liberation, Shri Krishna, who gives liberation to all, he is begging her for his liberation, and she's not liberating him. He's tied up by her rope of love, and she's not releasing him, and he's begging her. So how can anyone be greater than Yashoda? The giver of liberation begs her for his own liberation. Well, to return to our story, Yashoda, then after some time she releases him, because the punishment should not be such that it damages a child. So after some time she releases him, and then she bathes him, and she puts fresh clothes on him. He was crying, and his nose is running, and kajal is all over his cheeks. So she gives him a bath, puts nice clothes on him, fresh clothes on him, and then she says, Kanhaiya, play in the yard. Aangan mein khelo. So he's playing there. And Maiya Yashoda is doing, she's tending to her household chores. Many things she would do herself, because although she had many people to help her, she had many helpers, but there were many things that she would do by herself because it was for Krishna, for her child. She wouldn't let anyone else do it. She would do it herself. So she got busy with her work, and Kanhaiya got busy with his work. He was playing in the courtyard, and then all of a sudden he heard the voices of devotees who loved him the most. These were the milk maidens, the gopis. Vikretu kama khila gopa kanya murari padarpita chitta vrittihi dadhyadikam moha vashada vochat govinda damodar madhaveti. Each and every one of these gopis has made some excuse to get out of the house. Typically a married gopi would get up very early in the morning, and she would do a lot of household chores. She will get them finished, and then she will say, when her in-laws were up, when everybody in the family was awake, she would say very lovingly to her mother-in-law, Mataji, I have finished all my household work, and now I think I should, I will go out and sell some butter. This will bring some more money into the household. And her mother-in-law says, Beti, jao, go ahead. My dear daughter-in-law, you go. And the mother-in-law thinks, how wonderful my daughter-in-law is. Not knowing that the daughter-in-law is going to meet, she's going out to meet with her beloved, Krishna. And you know, the one thing about Sri Krishna, even though he's very small and the gopis are much older than him, he had, of course, being God, he had the ability to make himself taller and bigger, and so the gopis, they related to him as the beloved. To them, he was a beloved, many times. At times, he was a little child, but at times, he was very much older, and he was at the same age as them. So they were regarding him as a beloved. Once when Yashoda said to a gopi, you're saying that my little son, he climbed all the way up there and he stole your butter? The gopi said, Yashoda, Maiya, don't be fooled by him. Your Lala has some magic powers. Whenever he wants, he becomes taller. He becomes bigger, Maiya. So, whenever he wanted, he could change himself, and he would do that. So all the gopis, so this gopi, she has taken permission from her mother-in-law, and now she's gone out, and all the gopis are in the same situation, and they all go towards the house of Nand and Yashoda. Now if you ask them, why are you trying to sell your butter and buttermilk and milk and cream and whatever you're selling, curd, why are you going to sell these things in front of a house which is owned by people who own 900,000 cows? They have 900,000 cows, and you're going to their house to hawk your goods? But that's not their intention anyway. All the gopis are standing outside the house of Nanda and Yashoda, and they begin by saying, Meetha meetha makhan le lo, fresh and sweet butter for sale. That's what hawkers do. They hawk their goods by advertising them using their voice. Meetha meetha dahi le lo, sweet curd for sale, sweet buttermilk for sale. They're saying this initially, and they're waiting for darshan of Krishna. They're waiting for his darshan. So they become so lost in thoughts of Krishna that they eventually start saying, Govind le lo, Madhav le lo, Damodar le lo. They go into a trance, they enter this trance, a samadhi, induced by extreme love for beloved Sri Krishna. And then the baskets they're carrying on their heads, they all fall down, and there goes the tins of milk they have, that all fall down. And so now the dirt is mixed with butter and buttermilk and milk. So there's a very muddy playground for Krishna to play in. When Kanhaiya hears the sound of the gopis, he knows the love that is in their hearts. And it is his eternal law that he reciprocates the devotees' love. Ye yatha mam prapadyante tans tathaiva bhajamyaham, Bhagavad Gita. So he reciprocates the devotees' love. They love him, they're anxious to see him. He is also anxious to see them. So he's anxious to go outside. Now, at this age, this is when he's not able to walk very properly. And he uses all his strength. Because these pastimes happen at different ages. There are countless pastimes of his. So this is a pastime from the time when he couldn't really walk. So he uses his stomach, his legs, his tiny little feet to prop him across the threshold of the house. And there the gopis are there. And he sees that their foot dust, because they're standing there, their foot dust is there. And he always desires the charanaraj, the charanodak, the charanaraj of his devotees. And he starts playing, splashing around in that muddy playground. So outwardly he's a little child, and children love mud and dirt and all that. So he's splashing around in that. And internally what's going on is that he is desirous of the foot dust of the gopis. Now Yashoda, every mother has a sixth sense, so she senses that something's going on outside. So she comes out of the house and she sees that he's absent from the courtyard, and she panics. Where did he go? What happened? How did he get outside? She goes outside, and there he is. There is her darling son, covered from head to toe in mud. And she becomes very angry. She becomes annoyed with him, and she says, Idani mangamakshali rachitam chanulepanam idani mevate Krishna dhuli dhusaritam vapuh. Oh, Kanhaiya, what have you done to yourself? I gave you a bath half an hour ago, and look at what you've done to yourself. Oh, you're looking filthy. And she says, Kanhaiya, it seems to me, and she's so in anger, she says, it seems to me that you were a pig in your last life. Because you love to play around in the mud, and who loves to play around in the mud? Pigs do. So were you a pig in your last life, Kanhaiya? पिछले जन्म के सुअर लगते हो मुझे तो पंकाभिषिक्त सकला वयवम विलोक्य गोविंद. She says, तम शु करोसि गत जन्मनि पूतनारे. पिछली जन्म के सुअर लगते हो, ए पूतना का वध करने वाले, तुम पिछले जन्म के सुअर हो, ऐसा लगता है. So you seem to be a pig in your last, it seems you were a pig in your last life. Yashoda is saying this to Krishna. And Thakurji, what does he do? He turns around so Maya can't see him, and he starts to smile. As if to say, Maya, you don't know how right you are. And he was thinking about Shukra avatar, his avatar in the form of a boar. Maya, you're right, I was a pig in my last life. But he does not smile in front of Yashoda, because then she would start to suspect something. Why is he smiling like that? And she takes him inside again. So the pastimes of child Krishna, they are unlimited in number. There's no end to them. Scriptures such as the Bhagavatam, Garga Samhita, these scriptures have barely scratched the surface. Because Hari Anant, Hari Katha Ananta. His pastimes are unlimited. The pastime, a story about Sri Krishna that you can conjure up in your own mind, something that you can imagine, that is a pastime he has already performed. Because what you are going to think about is something that is part of the unlimited pastimes he has created. And even if you say that you have come up with some pastime that he has not performed yet, then that's fine too. Because Sri Krishna gives every devotee the freedom to think about any pastime of the devotee's choice. Tasmat kenapyupayena manah Krishne niveshayet yena kena prakarena manah Krishne niveshayet. Bhagavatam and Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu both have a very similar these similar verses, which mean that we have the complete freedom to think about Sri Krishna as we like. So we can think about and imagine any pastime without exception. Everything is allowed. But we get many hints. We even if you don't want to think of any other pastime, you want to be containing yourself to the Bhagavatam, let's say, that's fine. But if your mind gets tired of those pastimes and you want to come up with something new, then you have the freedom. We all have the freedom. Kanhaiya is asking Mother Yashoda for milk. And she says, well, I'll get you milk. But Maya, I want milk of my favorite cow, Kajiri. But Kanhaiya, that's impossible because Kajiri is out grazing in the pastures. But Maya, I want Kajiri's milk and I want it right now. And Yashoda Maya says, Lala, you have to wait. When Kajiri comes home, I shall milk her myself and then you can have the fresh milk of Kajiri. Maya, when is Kajiri coming home? Lala, Kajiri will come home in the evening. Wo shaam ko ghar aayegi. Sham, evening. Maya, what is evening? Don't children ask the cutest questions? We take for granted that a child would know what evening is, but children don't know. So he asks, what is evening? Sham ka samay kya hota hai, Maya? Kanhaiya, sham ka samay. Evening means, and remember this is 5,000 years ago. It's not like there was electricity at that time. She says, Kanhaiya, when it gets all dark, that's evening time. He says, really, when it gets all dark, then Kajiri will come home, Maya? Yes, yes. Are you sure? Yes. He blindfolds himself. He goes like this. Maya, it's evening time. It's dark. I cannot see anything. Maya, where are you? And Maya says, you silly. It's not evening time. But Maya, it is evening. I can't see a thing, Maya. Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? And Mother Yashoda laughs at this innocence of her child. And she laughs at his, the way that he wants Kajiri's milk right now. And she laughs and he's also laughing. And she tickles him and he starts to laugh and then he's pulling at her hair and mother and child are lost in love of each other. Vatsalya bhav. Once when he was very small, he was walking towards his Maya. He wanted her milk. So he was crawling actually, he wasn't walking, he was crawling. And then he saw his reflection in the floor. He saw his reflection and he became so attracted by his own beauty that he wanted to embrace that little child. And he thought, little Krishna is thinking, I have never seen such a beautiful child. Not realizing that it is himself that he's watching. I want to hug this little child. I want to embrace him. How happy I will be if I could get to embrace him. But how could he embrace his own reflection? So once again he started to cry out of frustration. as if to say, Maiya, you come. He's calling Maiya, because when he cries, it's like saying, it's like a call bell. Maiya says, yes, what do you want? And he's crying, he cannot communicate in any other way. So Maiya comes running, Lala, kya hua? What happened? And he tugs at her fingers and he says, and she sits down, and he's showing her his own reflection in the ground. And he's telling her, and she's finally understanding what he's saying. And Yashoda starts to smile to herself, that my Kanhaiya has fallen in love with himself. He is so beautiful that everyone finds him so beautiful, so delightful, but now he has fallen in love with himself. He wants to embrace his own reflection. How is that possible? She distracts him. Mother Yashoda always drinks the nectar of Kanhaiya's childhood pastimes. And we also taste, as much as we want to, we can also taste the sweetness of his childhood pastimes. We celebrated Janmashtami just a few days ago. Tomorrow is the 6th day of his birth. Tomorrow we shall celebrate Chatthi over here. And Kanhaiya is growing up fast. There are so many pastimes he is performing, so many leelas, so much bliss he is giving to Nand and Yashoda, and to the gopis, and to the Gwalbal, and to everyone in Braj, everyone. Everything that he does in Braj is filled with love. Even when he kills demons, he does it very playfully. You must have noticed that when Kanhaiya, he ended up killing many demons. Well, the first one was a demoness, Putana, and he killed her when he was 6 days old. But he killed her very playfully. She was trying to feed him her milk, so he's suckling, and in that way he sucked the very life breath out of her. Or he would enter the mouth of the demon and then stretched his body, made his body so tall that the demon's mouth burst and he would die. Or the demon would fly up in the sky with him, and Kanhaiya would hold on to his neck in a playful way and then take this life breath out of him. So he didn't use any weapons in Braj. He just did everything very playfully, very lovingly. At the age of 11 and a half, he left for Mathura along with Balaram. When Akrur came to summon them, he took them with him. Then the pastimes changed. So our Ishtadev is Sri Krishna, but Sri Krishna up until the time when he is in Braj. When he leaves for Mathura, now he leaves his flute behind, he leaves those pastimes behind. So the devotees of Sri Krishna, they don't want anything to do with Krishna when he is in Mathura or Dwarika. He is our own Krishna, of course. But that sweetness, that ultimate sweetness he's leaving behind, because those pastimes come to an end at the age of 11 and a half. Then he has come to earth to perform many tasks, and he is going to perform them. He's going to be the king of Dwarika, and he's going to be married, and he's going to have children. He is going to help the Pandavas in the Mahabharata. He's our own Krishna. But we worship Sri Krishna, who is Kunj Bihari, the one who performs pastimes in the groves, the one who is child Krishna. He's Balkrishna, and he's performing the sweet pastimes as a child, as a friend, as a beloved. That Sri Krishna is instrumental in increasing our love for him. And that Sri Krishna is our Ishtadev. We glorify him over and over again. May we always glorify him. May we always strive to love him more and more and more. May we always strive to surrender to him fully, 100%, under the guidance of our Gurudev, Jagat Guru Uttam, Shri Kripaluji Maharaj. Boliye Vrindavan Bihari Lal ki Jai. वृंदावन बिहारी लाल की
जय।
श्रीमद् सद्गुरु सरकार की
जय।
जय जय श्री राधे, जय जय श्री राधे, जय जय श्री राधे।